Hi, everyone, and welcome to Word About Nothing. Today, we're going to talk about not being motivated, being stuck, and not knowing what to do. My name is Katya.
I'm Danielle.
And I'm Kim.
And I know Danielle suggested this topic, so I'll
put her on the spot.
You'll defer to me.
Put her on the spot.
Yeah. I will say that I picked this topic because I saw a lot of people posting about it frequently, and it's not something that I can't relate to because in the past I have had periods of being or feeling not motivated and not knowing what to do, and then the feeling of not knowing what to do kind of creating this tension of wanting to do something even more. So I thought it might be kind of cool to talk about that and just, see what we can share from our experiences.
For me, sometimes being unmotivated is something that can definitely happen. I've certainly had times of being unmotivated, but it seems to be almost like a cycle. So I'll be very unmotivated for a while. I'll feel kind of stuck, not know what to do. And then that seems to turn into suddenly being incredibly motivated and incredibly full of beans and organized and doing things. So it's almost like a seasonal cycle sometimes. And I find that with being unmotivated, sometimes it can be when you feel like you've got a number of different choices and you don't know which one to choose. When there's just one choice or one or two choices, it's very easy to be motivated because you have to do one or the other or just one. But if you feel like you have a lot of choices, sometimes it can almost act like a freezing agent in that you think, oh God, there's too much to choose from. I don't know which one to choose, so I'm not going to choose anything.
Or you choose something, start to do it, and then you're like, I don't know if this is the right one. For me, I'm specifically talking about spiritual practices. I was like, wait, did I pick the right one? Is this actually helping? Which I know is ridiculous, but it does happen.
But I find that one thing that helps with that, for me anyways, because I kind of have a tendency to be lazy. So if left to my own devices, I'll sometimes just let things slide. Except not recently, I've suddenly turned into a very motivated person, but historically. And I find that the thing that helps is just doing it, because I think for me, sometimes being unmotivated is when I fall into my mind and I just think things through and it's like, oh, well, if I do that, then this happens and then I'll have to do that and then I'll have to do that. And you turn things into a mountain as opposed to just seeing the first step in front of you. So I'm finding it useful just to be able to go, okay, so what's the first step I have to take? Rather than looking up the hill and going, okay, I've got 2,000 steps I have to take, just going, what's the first one? Do that. Just do it. Don't think about it. What's the second step? Do that. Don't think about it. And that is helpful for me because before you know it, you're at the top of the hill. Whereas looking at the top of the hill and looking at what you have to achieve can sometimes be unmotivating because that can be overwhelming if there's too many things you have to do or too many steps, or it seems like it'd be hard or complicated or something like that. Whereas if you just take it step by step, literally, that can sometimes help, for me anyway.
I feel like I'm the opposite of like wanting to do stuff. Like my energy just would naturally, it's like, move. What are we doing next? What's next? So I think I could stand to allow that first step to emerge instead of being like, okay, here are 56 first steps I could take. Let's try these 5 all at the same time.
Well, you're going horizontally and you're like, oh God.
Right, being pulled in all these different directions. And I'm like, did any of these movements come from a place of truth? After the fact, I don't think is the time to be asking the question.
Well, at least you're asking it.
It's true.
I sometimes find that I'm just not motivated and don't want to do anything. And many times it can be related to me being tired. So if I didn't have a good sleep, I just feel, I don't really feel like doing anything. But then that happened yesterday in the morning. I was like, I'm not even going to do anything with kids. I'll just leave them to themselves. I'm just going to sit on the couch and do whatever I want. They can do whatever they want. They can figure it out themselves. And I'm not going to create an activity for them and feel like I need to take them out. So I felt extremely unmotivated. But once I've done that for maybe an hour or two, then something happened and motivation came in. And then I magically started organizing things and I pulled out my felting and I'm doing a pillow now. So that hasn't happened for a while. So I don't even know if it's anything related to the energies or because I was tired in the morning, but suddenly I wasn't tired in the afternoon. So it's kind of went with the flow. Definitely when I have those cycles where I'm a little bit more feeling down and feeling more depressed, I guess when we look at the Aratima course, she was talking at some point dissolution and rebirth. So definitely when there is a cycle of dissolution, I don't feel like doing much. And trying to get myself motivated at that time, it's really hard because I put a lot of pressure on myself and then I end up being stressed because it's not naturally moving through me. And it's amazing when it's naturally moving through you, then you can actually get a lot of accomplished. But if you really push yourself to do it, and sometimes you need to do that to get out of the cycle. You don't want to get stuck in there too. That's when it's really hard.
You raise a good point, though, that sometimes being unmotivated is the correct thing to do, because sometimes, especially in this Western world of do, you have to keep moving and doing things and achieving things. Sometimes being unmotivated is your body wanting a rest, So sometimes being unmotivated can be the rest period you need, like you say, the dissolution or the in-breath or the just resting your body, sitting on the sofa, not doing anything, not being forced into that action for action's sake, because I think that can be drilled into us sometimes in this Western world we live in, that you have to constantly be doing something or achieving something, whereas sometimes just sitting and doing nothing is what you need to do more than anything else. So it can, I guess, sometimes be a good indicator that just stop for a while. If things need to be done, then things need to be done. But if there's no pressing thing or an urgent thing that needs to be done, then maybe it's the time just to lie on the sofa and stare at the ceiling or go and sit in the woods or something and not achieve, because sometimes we can be drilled into believing that if we're not achieving something, we're failing, whereas sometimes the most successful days, in inverted commas, can be the ones when you don't actually do anything, but you might just feel very grounded or at one or very present with whatever you're doing, even though it's not an achievement as such. So I think it's not necessarily a failure. I think, there's so many courses these days on, how to motivate yourself to do X, Y, Z, whatever it might be. Like it's the goal or the ultimate way of being. Whereas sometimes waiting for the right action to move through, it's connecting to self and taking the right step, not because you're pushing yourself or forcing yourself, but just because it flows or it just comes naturally. Sometimes that can be so much more profound and meaningful and also beneficial than forcing a step just for the sake of a step, So it's more being on the right path of where you're supposed to be going or where you're moving to than just taking any old action because you believe that action is something you have to do. Because then you sometimes have to backtrack and undo the action and start again. So I think it can be important to allow yourself to have that space as well of not knowing what to do, because sometimes that's where inspiration strikes, when you're just so empty and you have no idea in the mind, there's not all these thoughts going around going, I must do this, I must do that, I must do this. And then you just have no idea what to do. And then sometimes that's when the inspiration actually comes in and you go, oh, that's what I need to do,
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I had this morning. I had some ideas coming through. It's like, oh, wow, that sounds amazing. Okay, let me start doing my little steps and see if I can get there at some point. It felt so true. And this is after definitely having some time of not having any inspiration at all. So that felt so true, so natural. And it was my own idea that I thought, yeah, I should really investigate that idea and look into that further. So I was pretty excited about it. And we live, as you said, Kim, in the Western world. It's all about being a machine, right? We work Monday to Friday, usually in a standard schedule, your typical whatever 9 to 5 or whatever your job schedule is, without necessarily accounting for the energies, so for the days of the week. I remember when we looked at astrology with Aratima, Mondays is not supposed to be a day where you're supposed to achieve a lot. It's governed by moon, and it's supposed to be a more relaxing day. Once I learned about it, then it made total sense, because on Monday I could never achieve a lot. I could never get a lot of done, while some other days of the week, I think there is one that governed by Mars, I don't remember which day of the week it is, then I could definitely achieve a lot more. So it's kind of interesting when you notice things like that and how certain things are natural to us as humans. Another interesting thing I've noticed, I watched a documentary yesterday, how we're disconnected from the nature. There is nature that is completely separate from us. We created the parks, we created our houses, and it's all separate. So the park is there not to be touched by humans, so you can actually go and enjoy it. But instead of separating all of this, if we could kept it all together and be part of the nature, that's when I think the motivation comes naturally. Sometimes it's really hard to be motivated in this unnatural world that we live in, because there's no true longing for something that you want to achieve. It's all being something that we've been conditioned to, that we have to do this, this, this. And then when you look in deeper meaning, you wonder, why do I have to do it? Is it because I've been conditioned to do it? Is it coming true from the inside or not? I think there is a difference between being lazy and not being motivated because it doesn't come naturally from you. And this is something that is important to distinguish. Because if you're lazy, you need to get out of the cycle. You need to notice, okay, you're lazy. What can I do to stop this cycle? How can I get out of this cycle? Is there a movement I could do? Is there something, a little step I can do to move forward and get myself out of that cycle? But if it comes naturally and you just feel unmotivated, well, as you said, Kim, maybe it's just the time to take a rest. So I think distinguishing between the two is important.
Yeah. And also, like you raised, paying attention to your own natural rhythms, so not just the natural rhythms of the days of the week. And like you say, Mondays are never the day that should be the start of the week, but it's flowing with that. And also your natural body rhythms, so working a 9 to 5, 5 days a week is very unnatural. Whereas I find that because now I'm able to work from home and there isn't the same sort of time stamp on things, I can work when I'm feeling most productive some of the time. I mean, sometimes there's deadlines and such like. So if I'm feeling very alert and very full of energy and feeling motivated to work at 8 o'clock at night instead of 9:30 in the morning, I will do, and I'll get more done that way because it fits in more naturally with my body rhythm, because I tend to be a night person as opposed to a morning person. So things like that are important to take into account as well. It's not trying to force yourself into the box of what is supposed to be the action and behavior of a motivated person or somebody who gets something done. Is listening to your own rhythm and following your own cycle or breath or energy flow. And yeah, and like you say as well, being out of touch with nature, I feel that for me, because at the moment I can in part make up my own days, a very important part of every day is always going out and walking in the woods. Because when you do that, you feel like you've come home to an extent. It takes you out of all of that computer world and getting things done and to-do list, and you're just there breathing with the trees. And that immediately can help center you, and walking barefoot on the ground and that kind of thing can be really important. And then it also helps to maybe in some ways understand the cycle or the rhythm of the movement, so it's like the seasons or like the day where there's certain times, peak times where things happen, growth happens, and there's certain times where there's rest and there's nothing happens and there's sleep or there's recovery or something like that. And I feel it's important to have the opposite, to have the action and non-action, because if it's all or nothing of one or the other, then you're either going to burn out or you're going to stagnate. Whereas the natural rhythm is motion and lack of motion. It's like the waves, it's kind of in and out. So I feel getting into that rhythm of things can be very helpful.
When you don't know what to do, again, I would go back to discerning whether you're just being lazy or whether it's the time that you need to take for yourself. So if you are being lazy and you really feel like it's time to get out and you need to get something done, or you might not be lazy, you might be just extremely, just have no ideas, and that's the state and you're trying to get out of it. Well, just create maybe one little task for yourself, something that gets you excited. What I would have done, let's say I wanted something yummy, so I might go and look up some simple recipe looking in the fridge what I have. For example, recently I found this delicious avocado mousse that used some avocado, some cocoa powder, and I don't remember what else, probably a little bit of honey. So you mix that up and enjoy it. Something like that. If you start with the little things, then it can all make a hot chocolate. I found that's really helpful. When I feel like that, I'll make something for myself and make it, then I enjoy it. It's like, okay, what do I do next? So little things like that, and maybe even giving yourself some rewards. For example, I don't know, let's say you need to clean a room, but you really don't feel like cleaning the room. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to clean the whole house. I'm just going to clean, let's say, a room and the washroom today. And after I've done that, I'll give myself a little treat or a little break or something that I really enjoy. I think if you give yourself a little motivation afterwards, then it might really help.
Mm-hmm. And in the same lines, it's like if you commit a small amount of time to something, at least for myself, I find that works. So it's like, okay, I'll clean for like just 5 minutes. And I try to I'll convince myself to start cleaning. And I'm not just going to clean for 5 minutes. It's like kind of once you get started, you have the momentum. And I get surprised sometimes like how much additional momentum I get just from starting to like tidy things up.
I try to stick to my commitments. So if I have a commitment, okay, today I'm doing bathrooms, I'll try to stick to that. And it's like, okay, tomorrow I'm doing floors or something. I found that if I don't, I always add more, then I'll get to the point, okay, I'll end up doing the whole house. No, I'm not even going to start. So for me, and I know we're all different, but for me, it's important to actually stick to what I made a commitment to do today and get a reward or just being happy that it's being done. And the next day, do what I promised that I'll do. Do it later in the day, but not at the same time.
Yeah, I'm finding for me these days that what I used to find difficult was the starting point, starting something that I said I was going to do or thought I would do or planned into my day, like cleaning or whatever it is. But these days I'm finding that I'm just doing it, just do it, get it over with and get it done, So what I might have done once upon a time, let's say, is if I'd planned to clean the house, I'd clean for an hour, then stop and sit down and do something or watch something or eat something. But now I'm just going, no, I said I was going to clean the house. I'm just going to clean the entire house. I'm going to do it now, get it done. And then I'll sit down maybe. And even then, why sit down? There's no need to reward myself for something that I've said I should do, which is clean my own house, so it's being kind of strict with myself, which is helpful. And I feel that another thing that people can sometimes do is call themselves something negative, like lazy, so growing up, I used to call myself lazy, or my parents used to call me lazy, which wasn't actually helpful in any way. So rather than doing that, because sometimes it's not necessarily that you're being lazy, it's just that you're feeling stuck because you don't know what to do. So you might take the easy way out, or you might just freeze and not do anything. But sometimes it can be helpful to stop calling yourself these names, It's like we spoke about in the last podcast about self-doubt. Instead of putting yourself down about things, just think, well, no, how can I take one step? Like we were talking about earlier and we've all touched on, how can I do one thing to start? How can I help myself to move? Being kind to yourself as opposed to putting some label and going, well, you're lazy, you're useless, you don't get anything done, you never do what you say you're going to do, or any of those things, and finding a way around it. And for me, it seems to be just doing it. But that took a while to get to, because especially if it's something you don't want to do, you might not enjoy, like cleaning or spreadsheets or something like that. I'm fixated with spreadsheets, I just can't stand them. But anyway, I'm finding that it's just doing it and finding the pleasure in doing it, instead of resenting it and hating it and pushing against it the whole time you're doing it, which makes it doubly hard, because you're not only not enjoying cleaning, but you're hating the fact that you're cleaning and you're resenting the cleaning and you're pushing against the cleaning. But instead of doing that, I'm finding that if I just clean and find the enjoyment in it, because there's enjoyment in many things that you might not necessarily think there is. It might be, even if it's just the small pleasure of, oh, wow, that's shiny now, as opposed to it's filthy and sticky or whatever. And using that as the motivation as you go through, you know what I mean? It sounds really silly, but it seems to be more helpful to really surrender into doing the thing that you're not enjoying doing as opposed to pushing against it. Or at least that works for me more. So if I'm doing these infernal spreadsheets, I'm just having to look in 12 different places and collate information and, oh my God, it's like torture. I'll be going, well, okay, but, you know, look how neat that is, or look, I'm putting this together. And, or if even if that doesn't work, I'll be thinking, well, I can feel myself grounding into my body a lot doing this, or something like that.
When I found that sometimes I can procrastinate quite a bit. So let's say I'm still going and doing it. That's not a problem of starting. So I'll start, let's say I need to do dishes. But then I'm noticing that I'm doing it for way too long because there will be a text message or there's something else. So I get distracted. I look at the phone. Then something happened with the kids. I need to go help, and it's dragging the whole activity for way too long. That's usually a problem with me. So I have been really trying to put my phone away so I don't look at it. Leave it in a different room. The same for the night. People said, leave it to rest. So I now let it rest in a different room while I'm sleeping. So we both have good night's sleep. And just really focusing and trying to get it done as quickly as possible, because the quicker you get it done, the more time you have in your hand to do and enjoy other activities. I found that's really helpful. Sometimes even doing a little bit of a racing thing, say, okay, can I get it done by this time? And trying to get it done that way. I don't really spend a lot of time on procrastination, because if something happens, like, oh, okay, I have to go get it done by this time. And so that definitely helped me.
I was thinking of something similar when you're speaking, Katya, because I feel like going back to the types that we talked about, being a type 3 and valuing results, I feel like putting a time on the clock, being like, okay, how much can I get done in 15 minutes? That could be pretty motivating for my type to be like, okay, yeah, let's see how much of this room I can get clean in 15 minutes. Let's just like find out. Different strokes for different folks, but I could see it working.
So funny that we're all bringing cleaning up as an example of things that we don't like doing. Like, oh God.
It's funny though, because it's like once things are clean, you can feel like the energy of it and how nice it is. So it's probably not the best example, honestly, to use. So yeah, it's a good one, I think.
It is a good one. For me, I clean it and then kids come in and then spill something.
That's
like,
true.
Oh.
Always has to be done again.
I just cleaned it.
And they don't care.
I can't enjoy the clean house for a long time, or I have to clean it more often. One of the two.
It can be about getting into habits as well, you know, rather than putting it off until it really needs to be done, just deciding you're going to do it Monday at 5 o'clock. Monday's a bad day choice, actually, but Saturday at 5 o'clock. You know, and just
whatever good energy day is for you that day.
Yeah.
This time.
And it can just be, you know, or every other day or whatever it is. Because that can also help sometimes, you know, using cleaning again as an example, rather than doing a really big clean every so often, just keeping it clean as you go along. You know, some people do this all the time. Grown-ups do this, but I'm finding, you know, I don't seem to be a grown-up in that respect necessarily, but I'm also now. But just kind of just keeping everything at a certain level of clean. And it's easier for me because I don't have kids, though I do have a cat who likes to mess things up. But just keeping it at that level of clean.
It's interesting because my husband can get dishes done really, really quickly. And I just thought he's really good at it. And he tells me, I really hate it. So I'm trying to get it done as quickly as possible. So I stopped doing the activity that I hate doing as quickly as possible. So that's, I guess, one motivation.
That's a good one, though. Get it over and done with rather than dragging it out, hating it for 4 hours, you know.
That's true. Sometimes just getting it done, then you don't have that resistance about constantly thinking about the fact that it has to be done.
Yeah, or resisting it, viciously resisting those pans that are dirty, that you dirtied. You know, it's just...
Especially, though, with food stuff, I find if the sooner I clean it up, the better, because the easier it is to get that stuff off. And once that pan cools, good luck.
Yeah, that's true. Going back to the point about not knowing what to do, sometimes it can be good not to know what to do, because when you don't know what to do, you've got the entire world of possibilities in front of you, you know, whereas when you are set on a path, there's just the one path, you know, whereas if you don't know what to do and you have so many options, you can just sit and feel into the options and see what comes or see what feels right. Because there can be that fear around it as well sometimes of people always needing to know what the next step is or what their plan is. You know, I went to school and university with some people who have these 5 or 10-year plans, and they'd have very exact times and dates for when they wanted things to happen. So it would be, because we were at school and university around about that time, it was, you know, I'll meet the person I'm going to marry, going to get married, we're going to have kids by this time, then we'll have this kind of house, and then we'll move to this place. And I was always rather baffled by it because I've never kind of lived that way. But also it seemed to me, restrict all other possibility of anything else happening. So instead of being open to the fact that either you might not marry that person, or not marry at that time, or not get married at all, or something else might happen, it seemed very kind of controlling and structured. You know, it was like, I will be married by the time I'm 25. I will be pregnant by the time I'm 27. I will have 3 kids by the time I'm 32. You know, that kind of thing. It seemed kind of prescriptive to me. So it wasn't really going with the flow of what life could hold for you. But then, you know, it works for some people. Some people are happy with that. And some of the people that had the 5-year plans have achieved their 5-year plans. So that's great. But I don't think there's anything wrong with not having a 5-year plan either, you know, or knowing where you want to be, because sometimes it can be such a societal pressure, you know, especially around I think we've touched on this before, but especially around the must get married by this age, must have kids by this age, must be living in this kind of house with a white picket fence by this age. Or sometimes maybe your life is not supposed to be a white picket fence and you're not supposed to have kids, or there's other possibilities out there for you.
Totally, because I regularly think that, well, my mind is so tiny, and if I open myself to this whole divine intelligence, then there is a lot more possibilities that might be open up for me. But if I just have this 5-year plan, then if something doesn't go according to that plan, then I'd probably feel quite miserable, because that's all I know. I would just live by that plan instead of allowing the life to happen the way it meant to happen. How can you predict what will happen in 5 years' time with your little tiny brain? Well, I'm certainly talking about myself. I certainly can't do that. And I remember going for a job interview, and they would ask me one of the questions, what is your 5-year plan? I hated those questions, but I had to come up with the ideas, what they wanted to hear about doing this job, getting a promotion, moving to the next role, and all this kind of things, and having a timeline. In 3 years, I'll become this. In 4 years, I'll do that, which I guess that's what a lot of corporations want to see. They want to see that you have an idea and you can have control over your life. But it's not how it works in real life.
Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? Sometimes looking back on things that you might have really, really wanted once and thinking, oh, thank God that never happened. You know, because if that had happened, oh God, you know, I wouldn't either be where I am, or, you know, I would have been stuck in some situation that I may not have wanted to be in.
Yeah, I was going to say,
absolutely.
As I've gotten older, it's easier to have that perspective because you've been through a couple cycles, or I've been through a couple cycles of wanting something and either achieving it and not turning out the way that I expected it to, or wanting something, not getting it, and then being in another situation like completely different than what I had anticipated before. So I think sometimes with time, it's at least in my experience, it's a little easier to have that perspective of just flowing with things instead of holding on so tightly to what you think you want.
That's a key point as well. It's the things that you think you want, as opposed to maybe the things that you really want. You know, sometimes the mind can go, I want that, I definitely want that thing, I want that thing. But really what you want is not that thing at all, you know. So I guess it's falling into what true desire is, or what you truly desire, as opposed to what you might think you want just now, you know, whether it be that ice cream or that man or that house, or, you know, whatever it is.
I find sometimes that if you have a desire, and then you might do something around it, and then if you let it go, and then you can see if that desire comes back to you or not. If it does come back, that it's more likely to be true desire. But if it's something that you no longer care about, well, then it might be just an ongoing desire to get something. Because I look at so many things I wanted as I was younger, and now I don't want any of that. That's kind of interesting.
And what else was it? Not knowing what to do, not being motivated, and feeling stuck. feeling stuck is an interesting one. We haven't touched on that really. I guess sometimes feeling stuck can sometimes be a number of different things. So it can either be that you feel stuck because you can't see a way out, or you can't see the next action to take, or there are too many actions and too many options to take. But feeling stuck is kind of in some ways a self-defeating thing. It can be like calling yourself lazy or calling yourself unmotivated or putting that negative slant on it. Because feeling stuck, in my experience, when looking back on times when I have felt stuck, has always been because way back years ago, because I couldn't see a really clear end goal. So it was running to the end of a line as opposed to seeing the next step or seeing possibilities or seeing options. And that was very mind, and that was very, in some ways, very arrogant, because it was me going, well, I can't see exactly how I can get to exactly where I want to be on the timeline exactly that I want to live. Therefore, I feel stuck.
Right. Instead of allowing the possibilities to pop up in the present moment, you're already somewhere in the future saying that where you're at right now isn't going to work out to what you want it to be, and kind of rejecting, I guess, the present in favor of worrying about how the future will unfold instead of being more present and, I guess, allowing some insight into what you can do in the present moment, or the proper action to take in the present moment. Yeah.
Exactly. And also it's kind of putting yourself down in some ways as well, if you're following that way of defining being stuck, because you're not seeing that it's possible for you to be the kind of person that could have something that you might potentially want, even though that's all convoluted and tangled in mind. But it's stopping yourself. You're failing before you even start. So even before taking one tiny little step, you're going, oh no, I can't do it, or I'm not good enough, or it's not possible, or it doesn't happen to somebody like me, or any of those things that the mind can throw up. I used to do quite a lot of that in my youth. Or it can sometimes be, again, going back to what we talked about last time, it can be comparing yourself sometimes, so you can feel stuck because, or I used to sometimes feel stuck because I wasn't that other person that I was looking at and going, oh, I want to be that, or I wish I could achieve that, or whatever it is. And sometimes feeling stuck can be a feeling of powerlessness. So in some ways you're giving up your sense of power or your ability to do anything or take any kind of action because you're kind of just giving up.
Well, sometimes you can be stuck because you're really overwhelmed. There is such a big task and you just feel like, wow, I'm so stuck here. I can't even move forward. I know somebody who moved from one place to another, and she was so stuck she couldn't even move any boxes or unpack them because she was just fully overwhelmed. And what she started doing was she started doing meditation. We do have a podcast on meditation, so if you're interested, please listen in. And she started doing meditation, and she started, instead of looking at it as one big task that, oh, I need to sort out all these boxes, she was just doing one box a day. She started doing little by little, and within a month, she got it all organized and sorted. And she was so happy with her life that meditation was something that got her back to that, because she wasn't letting her thoughts going wild, and she was getting a little bit better control over the thoughts and patterns that were coming up. So that could be helpful for sure. And sometimes being stuck is the expectation of something to happen. You expect that, okay, I really want this thing and by now things should happen, but they never do happen, or they haven't happened just yet, or maybe they're not meant to happen for you. I think again, it's just looking at life that it has to fulfill your desires instead of looking at life as being just life and you living it. And whatever you experience, feelings, emotions, that's life, not necessarily something has to happen and you have to be somewhere else. That's your ideas of life, but whether it is life at that moment or not, well, that's only you can answer that.
Yeah, and feeling stuck or feeling unmotivated or any of these things that we've discussed so far are a resistance to life, as you say, and a resistance to things being what they are. It's having a preference, it's an attraction or aversion, it's an aversion to whatever the present moment is holding for you. And that can sometimes increase the stuckness or the unmotivation or anything else, or the not knowing what to do, because you're spending all your energy pushing against it. You're not allowing it to move through or shift or change, or allowing any other possibility to be, or accepting it just as it is, accepting it for what it is, because sometimes you might feel stuck and you just feel stuck. In that moment, you feel stuck. There's no good or bad about it. There's no, I must not feel stuck. Because as soon as you start thinking that, then you're rejecting stuck as a bad thing. Whereas if you just accept the fact that right now I'm feeling stuck, I'll just have a cup of tea while I feel stuck, and wait for it to pass, or just accept the fact that stuckness is my experience right now. And then you're not putting such a big thing on it. You're not making it into a mountain. It's just a small blip, or it's a pebble on the ground. It's not this huge wall in front of you. Because the more you focus on the stuckness or the whatever it is that's stopping you from doing or being what you want to be, it just grows. The more it expands and gets bigger and bigger. Like your friend's moving, I'm sure to her, the thought of all the things she had to unpack were like a warehouse full, whereas it was probably just a small house, as opposed to a village. But it just grows in your mind because you just increase it.
Danielle, you seem to have an idea. I see it flowing.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to formulate it before, just because it's been a newer experience something I started experiencing today. It was really meeting what's coming up as a lover, the concept that Aratima brought up recently on one of the calls, and just like really being with it, like very merging with it. It's happening differently than I've experienced it in the past. Before, it was more of a neutrality, which I didn't realize. I thought I was meeting things more head on, but it was more of like looking at things from a neutral place, kind of just that acceptance of it versus having this kind of greeting feeling. It's almost like a feeling of love, like being able to really love anything that's coming up. It's like, oh, I noticed there's this pain in my foot. And just almost being like exciting, oh yeah, this pain is here, cool, I have something I can interact with. And it's this kind of feeling of like, it's really hard for me to explain just because it's so new. So I was like, I don't really know if I want to talk about it because it might not make any sense to anybody who's listening.
No, it totally makes sense. It's like you're merging with it because you're not rejecting it or seeing it as separate to you. You're welcoming back. So it's like that lover aspect is becoming one with it. It's union with it. So the pain in your foot or whatever it might be, you're going, oh, that's my pain in my foot. Hello, foot. Hello, pain. Welcome back.
That's exactly how it feels. Exactly.
Yeah.
You're spot on. Because before I was thinking just when you observe it and you be with it, but that was more of like I want to say kind of like more of a masculine way of doing it, because it was more of an observing of it moving through, which I was mistaking for being with something, where this experience feels much more like being with it, because you're literally interacting with it just like you described. Hello, hi, yes, you're here, cool, so am I. Like, but it all being such a positive and expansive feeling. There's no pushing away of whatever the experience might be.
And it's not rejecting anything that you might not like about yourself. So whether it's the pain in the foot or whether it's being unmotivated or feeling stuck, you're not rejecting that part of yourself. You're welcoming it back in and you're going, yes, it's my feeling stuck. Welcome back, energy. Let's merge again. Let's become that river rather than all these little rivulets that are all, separate, if that's a word. I don't even know if rivulets exist. But anyway, yeah, it's oneness with it. And I know what you mean, because I feel that that's been happening more for me as well with a lot of different things. I think it is the feminine, like you say. It is the merging with, it's the embracing of something and realizing that it's you, and acknowledging and knowing that it's you. So it's not feeling stuck because of something external. It's I'm feeling stuck because I'm feeling stuck. It's my stuckness. It's not an external circumstance forcing it upon you or making you feel stuck. You are feeling stuck. You are allowing yourself to feel stuck. And when you embrace that, the stuckness no longer exists because it's part of you. So it's like it's melting it into you.
There's a laughter that I find internally, at least with it. It's almost like, hi, stuckness, like laughing at it. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but It's like when you just think something so adorable, it's like looking at a puppy that can't like walk right yet. And you're just like, oh, it's so ridiculous. So it's just like looking at the stuckness and be like, hi, yeah. It's just so silly. Like, what's the stuckness? But loving it instead of being like, oh, I can't believe I'm stuck. It's like, oh, what is the stuckness? And getting into that. It's like, I can't even go there right now. I don't want to, into that. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I understand. And it's going, oh, there you are, stuckness, as opposed to, oh, God, there you are again, stuckness.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, hi, yeah, this, okay. Like, it's almost like you want to have a conversation with it, like, what's going on? Yeah? Okay, it's that serious? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I think that's an important part of it, is bringing it back into the fold, as it were, and really feeling it. So you're feeling the stuckness. You're not denying the stuckness or pushing away the stuckness, but you're feeling the stuckness. And as you feel it and it merges back with you, it's almost like a welcome home. It's like the little sheep that got lost and got stranded has come back to the flock, and you kind of go, oh, there you are, come back. You've been feeling all lonely and on your own over there, but come back, you belong here. And then it turns into something else. So when you sit with it and you feel it all merging, it becomes something else, and it can often become something surprising. So rather than, if you might have been feeling moments before that stuckness or hopelessness or whatever it might be, and then you allow it to come in, merge with it, it can often turn into a feeling of either power or love or passion or something that you wouldn't expect if you didn't allow it to come home. I've been feeling that with a few things recently. I went through a time when I was feeling a lot of shame, and with shame, it's one of those things I used to push away. But as I was allowing it and merging back with it, the feeling as it merged was love. It was love. It was a merging of love, and that's more of a feeling of completeness. I feel that as you accept all aspects of yourself and stop fragmenting and denying, then everything can come home. And instead of wasting your energy and your power and your self on all these tiny little channels that go nowhere, if you bring it all back together, it becomes that one, super hose, so the water can zoom out as opposed to trickling out and disappearing down the drain. And there's that feeling of completeness with it as well. Maybe super hose was a bad example.
No, I love it. I want a meme. We got to come up with something. Super hose. The seed has been planted.
But yeah, that's a very good point you raised, Danielle.
Thank you. I'm glad that you pushed me to share it, Katya. Please, listeners, let us know if you have any idea what we're talking about. We can have a discussion around this. I'll do my best to try to explain something that's fairly new to me. I think Kim has done an excellent job in helping me out. But please, if you've ever experienced anything like this, let us know. Or if you're curious about more, just let's have a conversation. Leave us a comment. I want to know.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We talked about being stuck and unmotivated. Hopefully there was some good tips for any of you. So if you would like to have updates on our future podcasts, please remember to subscribe, so otherwise you'll miss them all. And remember to like us. And if you have any comments, please put them below. We're really, really looking for any comments, and we would love them, and we'll answer any questions that you have for us. Don't be shy. Any comments are greatly appreciated, and please tune in next week. See you then. Bye.